Your emotions are not your friend. Let me say that once more. Your emotions are not your friend. They are not some sacred inner voice guiding you toward truth and happiness. They are biological reactions designed for a world that no longer exists. A world where immediate emotional responses meant the difference between life and death. But in today's world, your emotional reactions are sabotaging your success, destroying your relationships, and keeping you trapped in cycles of regret and failure. Every single day, you make choices based on how you feel in the moment. You get triggered by a comment and fire back with something you will regret. You feel overwhelmed and quit on your goals. You get anxious about a presentation and avoid the opportunity that could transform your career. You let anger dictate your words and demolish relationships that took years to build. You are being controlled by chemical reactions in your brain, and you do not even realize it. But here is what the top 1% of high achievers understand that you do not. They have learned the most powerful skill in human existence, the ability to not react. The ability to feel the emotion, acknowledge it, and then choose their response based on logic, strategy, and long-term thinking instead of the primitive impulses screaming in their heads. This is not about becoming emotionless. This is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending they do not exist. This is about taking back control of your life by mastering the space between stimulus and response. The space where your power lives. The space where your future is determined. By the time you finish this audiobook, you will never be the same person who started listening. You will have the tools, the knowledge, and the mental frameworks to control your emotions instead of being controlled by them. You will learn how to stay calm under pressure, make better decisions when stakes are high, and build the kind of unshakable inner strength that separates winners from everyone else. The hidden cost of emotional reactivity. Most people have no idea how much their emotional reactions are costing them. They think it is normal to get triggered. They think it is human nature to lose control when things get difficult. They think that intense emotions are a sign of passion and authenticity. They are wrong, completely wrong. And this delusion is destroying their lives in ways they cannot even perceive. Let me paint you a picture of what emotional reactivity actually looks like in the real world. You are in a meeting with your boss and colleagues. Someone challenges your idea in a way that feels disrespectful. Your heart starts racing. Your face gets hot. The voice in your head starts screaming about how unfair this is, how they do not understand your vision, how they are trying to make you look bad. And before you know it, you are defending yourself with an edge in your voice that makes everyone in the room uncomfortable. You have just damaged your professional reputation over a 60-second emotional reaction. Or maybe you are having an argument with your partner about something relatively minor. They say something that hits a nerve. Instead of staying composed and working toward a solution, you escalate. You bring up past grievances. You say things designed to hurt them because you are hurting. 10 minutes later, you have turned a small disagreement into a relationship-threatening conflict that will take days to recover from. All because you could not control your initial emotional reaction. Here is the brutal truth that nobody wants to face. Every time you react emotionally instead of responding thoughtfully, you are training your brain to be weaker. You are reinforcing neural pathways that make you more likely to lose control the next time. You are literally rewiring your brain for failure, for conflict, for regret. And the worst part is that you are doing it voluntarily. The science is clear on this. Every emotional reaction triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals flood your system, cloud your judgment, and make it impossible to think clearly. But here is what most people do not realize. These hormones do not just disappear when the situation is over. They remain in your system for hours, sometimes days, affecting every decision you make, every interaction you have, every thought that crosses your mind. This means that one emotional reaction in the morning can undermine your entire day. That argument with your spouse affects how you perform at work. That stressful email triggers a cascade of poor decisions that ripple through your entire week. You become trapped in a cycle of reactivity, where each emotional outburst makes the next one more likely. But the cost goes deeper than just your daily performance. Chronic emotional reactivity literally alters your brain structure. Studies using brain imaging technology reveal that people who regularly lose emotional control have smaller prefrontal cortexes. This is the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking, planning, and impulse control. In other words, the more you react emotionally, the less capable you become of thinking clearly and making sound decisions. The financial cost of emotional reactivity is staggering. Think about every opportunity you have missed because you were too angry, too anxious, or too overwhelmed to think straight. Every relationship you have damaged because you could not keep your mouth shut when you were upset. Every goal you have abandoned because you felt discouraged and decided to quit. The compound effect of these losses over a lifetime is devastating. I have worked with executives who have lost millions of dollars because they made decisions while enraged. I have seen entrepreneurs destroy partnerships that took years to build because they could not manage their emotional reactions during negotiations. I have watched brilliant individuals sabotage their own careers by sending messages they composed while frustrated or making presentations while anxious. The relationship cost is even more heartbreaking. Every time you lose control emotionally with someone you care about, you withdraw trust from the relationship bank account. You create distance. You plant seeds of resentment. Over time, these emotional reactions accumulate and dismantle the very connections that matter most to you. Your children observe how you handle emotions and learn that this is normal. Your partner starts walking on eggshells around you because they never know what might trigger you. Your colleagues begin to see you as unreliable and unstable. Your reputation becomes one of someone who cannot be counted on when things get tough. But perhaps the greatest cost of emotional reactivity is what it does to your relationship with yourself. Every time you lose control, you lose respect for yourself. You know that you are capable of more. You know that you could have handled the situation better, but in the moment, you felt powerless against your own emotions. This creates a cycle of self-doubt and shame that erodes your confidence from the inside out. The good news is that this is completely within your reach. Emotional reactivity is not your destiny. It is not written in your DNA. It is not an unchangeable part of who you are. It is a habit, and like any habit, it can be broken and replaced with something far better. The question is whether you are willing to do the work to change it. Why your brain is wired to undermine you. To understand how to control your emotions, you first need to comprehend why your brain seems determined to make you lose control. The truth is, your emotional responses are not random or meaningless. They are the result of millions of years of evolution designed to keep your ancestors alive in a world filled with immediate physical threats. But the world has changed dramatically, and your brain has not received the update. Let me introduce you to the most significant part of your brain that you have probably never heard of: the amygdala. This small almond-shaped structure sits deep in your brain and functions as your personal alarm system. Its purpose is to scan for threats and trigger immediate responses to keep you safe. When your ancestors encountered a saber-toothed tiger, the amygdala would flood their system with adrenaline, shut down rational thinking, and prepare them for fight or flight. This response saved lives. The problem is that your amygdala cannot distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and an aggressive email from your boss. It cannot differentiate between a physical threat and a social threat. It treats criticism, rejection, embarrassment, and conflict as if they were life or death situations. So when your colleague questions your idea in a meeting, your amygdala sounds the alarm, just as if you were being attacked by a predator. This is called an amygdala hijack, and it happens to you more frequently than you realize. The moment your brain perceives a threat, rational thinking goes offline. Blood flow is redirected away from your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, and impulse control, and toward your limbic system, which governs emotional responses. You literally become less intelligent when you are emotionally activated. Here is what makes this even worse. Your amygdala learns from experience, but it is terrible at drawing the right conclusions. Every time you have an emotional reaction to something, your amygdala files that information away as evidence that the situation was actually dangerous. This means that things that triggered you once become more likely to trigger you again. Your brain is continuously expanding the list of things it considers threats. This is why people who have been hurt in relationships become hypersensitive to any sign of rejection or abandonment. Their amygdala has learned that emotional pain is dangerous. So it starts sounding alarms at the slightest indication that it might happen again. This is why people who have been criticized at work become defensive about any feedback, even when it is constructive and well-intentioned. Your amygdala also has a negativity bias. It is far better at remembering threats than rewards, failures than successes, pain than pleasure. This made sense when survival was the primary concern, because forgetting about a threat could get you killed, while forgetting about a reward was just unfortunate. But in today's world, This negativity bias means your brain is constantly searching for problems, dangers, and reasons to be upset. Another critical factor is that your amygdala processes information much faster than your rational mind. It can identify a threat and trigger an emotional response in as little as 12 milliseconds. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, takes at least 500 milliseconds to process the same information. This means you are reacting emotionally long before you have a chance to think rationally about what is actually happening. This is why you sometimes find yourself feeling angry or anxious, and then wondering why. Your emotional brain has already determined there is a threat and started preparing your body for action before your rational brain even knows what is going on. By the time you are consciously aware of feeling angry, your heart is already racing. Your muscles are tense, and stress hormones are flooding your system. The modern world makes this challenge even worse because we are constantly exposed to low-level stressors that keep our amygdala on high alert. Social media notifications, news headlines engineered to trigger fear and outrage, work emails that demand immediate responses, traffic jams, financial pressures, relationship conflicts. Your brain is bombarded with signals that something might be wrong, which keeps your emotional alarm system in a constant state of activation. This chronic state of alert has serious consequences for your ability to think clearly and make sound decisions. When your amygdala is constantly activated, it becomes hypersensitive. Things that would not normally trouble you start to feel overwhelming. Your threshold for emotional reactions gets lower and lower until even minor inconveniences can trigger major emotional responses. Sleep deprivation makes this even more severe. When you do not get enough quality rest, your amygdala becomes 40% more reactive to negative stimuli. This means you are literally more likely to lose emotional control when you are exhausted. Stress, poor nutrition, lack of exercise, and dehydration all have comparable effects on your brain's ability to regulate emotions. But here is the insight that will transform everything for you. Understanding that your emotional reactions are automatic does not mean you are powerless against them. It means you can learn to work with your brain instead of against it. You can train your prefrontal cortex to override your amygdala. You can build new neural pathways that support emotional control instead of emotional reactivity. The key is recognizing that there is always a gap between the trigger and your response. It might be microseconds, but it exists, and in that gap lies your power. That is where you can choose to respond instead of react. That is where you can reclaim control of your life. Of emotional mastery. Not all emotional control is created equal. Most people believe that managing emotions is a simple on-off switch. Either you are in control or you are not. Either you are calm or you are reactive. This black and white thinking is precisely why most people never develop genuine emotional mastery. True emotional control exists on 4 distinct levels, and understanding these levels is crucial for developing the kind of unshakable inner strength that separates champions from everyone else. Level 1 is unconscious reactivity. This is where most people spend their entire lives. At this level, you are completely at the mercy of your emotions. You feel something, and you immediately act on it without any conscious choice in the matter. Someone says something that bothers you, and you fire back instantly. You feel anxious about a situation, and you avoid it without reflection. You get excited about an opportunity, and you make impulsive decisions that you later regret. People at level 1 do not even realize they have a choice in how they respond to their emotions. They believe that their feelings are facts, that their emotional reactions are justified, and that other people are responsible for how they feel. They say things like, "You made me angry," or "I cannot help the way I feel," or "I was just being honest about my emotions." They have zero awareness of the gap between stimulus and response. The problem with level 1 is that it makes you completely unpredictable and unreliable. People never know which version of you they are going to encounter. You might be calm and reasonable one day and explosive the next, depending on your mood, your stress level, and what is happening in your life. This unpredictability destroys trust in relationships and makes it impossible for others to depend on you when things get difficult. Level 2 is conscious reactivity. This is where you become aware that you are having an emotional reaction, but you choose to act on it anyway. You know you are angry. You know you are about to say something you will regret, but you do it anyway because it feels justified in the moment. You recognize that you are being governed by your emotions, but you tell yourself that this situation is different, that this time your reaction is warranted. People at level 2 often justify their emotional reactions by focusing on the behavior of others. They say things like, "Yes, I lost my temper, but did you see what they did to me?" Or, "I know I should not have sent that message, but they had it coming." They have awareness, but no genuine control. They see the gap between stimulus and response, but choose not to utilize it. Level 2 is actually more frustrating than level 1, because you know better, but you still cannot seem to stop yourself. You become trapped in a cycle of emotional reactions, followed by guilt and regret, followed by promises to do better next time, followed by more emotional reactions. This creates a pattern of self-disappointment that erodes your confidence and self-respect over time. Level 3 is conscious response. This is where real emotional mastery begins. At this level, you feel the emotion. You recognize it for what it is, and you consciously choose how to respond based on your values and your long-term goals, rather than your immediate feelings. You might feel angry, but you choose to speak calmly. You might feel anxious, but you choose to take action anyway. You might feel disappointed, but you choose to focus on solutions rather than dwelling on problems. People at level 3 understand that emotions are information, not instructions. They recognize that feeling angry does not mean they have to act angry. They know that feeling anxious does not mean they are in actual danger. They have learned to create space between what they feel and how they respond. And they use that space to make choices that align with who they want to be, rather than how they happen to feel in the moment. This level demands significant practice and self-awareness. You have to become skilled at recognizing your emotional states as they arise, understanding what triggers them, and having a variety of alternative responses ready to deploy. You have to train yourself to pause, breathe, and think before you act. This does not happen overnight, but it is absolutely achievable with consistent effort. Level 4 is emotional alchemy. This is the highest level of emotional mastery, where you not only control your response to emotions, but actually transform the emotions themselves. Instead of just managing anger, you transform it into motivation. Instead of just coping with fear, you transform it into excitement. Instead of just dealing with disappointment, you transform it into curiosity about what you can learn from the experience. People at level 4 have developed such a profound understanding of their emotional patterns that they can often prevent negative emotions from arising in the first place. They have restructured their thinking patterns, their beliefs, and their mental models in ways that naturally generate more positive emotional states. When negative emotions do arise, they have the skills to swiftly transform them into something more useful. This level is not about positive thinking or pretending that negative emotions do not exist. It is about developing such mastery over your internal state that you can consciously choose what to feel in any given situation. You become the director of your own emotional experience, rather than just an actor reading from a script you did not write. The journey from level 1 to level 4 does not happen in a straight line. You might be at level 3 in some areas of your life and level 1 in others. You might handle work stress like a champion, but completely lose control when dealing with family drama. The objective is not perfection, but progress. Each level represents a significant upgrade in your ability to create the life you want, rather than just reacting to the life that happens to you. Most people never make it past level 2 because they do not understand that emotional mastery is a skill that can be developed. They think that some people are just naturally gifted at controlling their emotions, while others are not. This is completely false. Emotional control is like physical fitness. Some people might have better genetics, but anyone can get stronger with consistent training. The question you need to ask yourself is this: what level are you operating at right now? And more importantly, what level do you want to be operating at? Because once you make the decision to upgrade your emotional operating system, everything in your life will begin to shift. When you are in the middle of an emotional reaction, when your heart is racing and your mind is spinning, and every instinct in your body is telling you to lash out or run away or do something you will regret, you need a system. You need a method that you can deploy immediately in real time to regain control before you cause permanent damage to your relationships, your reputation, or your goals. Most advice about emotional control is useless in these moments because it requires you to think clearly, when thinking clearly is exactly what you cannot do. When you are emotionally hijacked, your prefrontal cortex is offline. You cannot access complex strategies or remember detailed frameworks. You need something simple, something automatic, something that functions even when your rational mind has temporarily left the building. This is where the stop method comes in. 4 letters that represent 4 actions you can take in sequence to interrupt an emotional reaction and regain control of yourself before you make decisions you will regret. This method is based on decades of neuroscience research and has been tested in the most high-pressure situations imaginable, from emergency rooms to battlefields to boardrooms. S stands for stop. The moment you notice that you are having an emotional reaction, you must physically stop whatever you are doing. If you are composing an angry email, take your hands off the keyboard. If you are in the middle of an argument, close your mouth. If you are about to make an impulsive decision, step away from the situation. This physical stopping action sends a signal to your brain that you are taking charge. The key to making this work is developing the ability to recognize the early warning signs of emotional activation. Your body always provides clues before your emotions completely take over. Your heart starts beating faster. Your muscles tighten up. Your breathing becomes shallow. You feel heat rising in your face or a knot forming in your stomach. These physical sensations are your cue to stop everything and implement the method. Most people miss these early warning signs because they are not paying attention to their bodies. They are lost in their thoughts, focused on the external situation, completely unaware of what is happening internally until they are already in full reaction mode. Learning to tune into your physical sensations is like installing an early warning system that gives you time to implement control strategies before it is too late. The stop action needs to be decisive and complete. You cannot sort of stop or partially stop. You have to completely disengage from whatever you are doing. This might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you are in the middle of a conversation or a meeting. But the temporary discomfort of stopping is nothing compared to the lasting damage of saying or doing something you will regret. T stands for take a breath. Not just any breath, but a specific type of breathing that activates your parasympathetic nervous system and begins to calm your emotional reaction. You are going to inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 4. Then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. This is called box breathing, and it is used by Navy SEALs, emergency responders, and elite athletes to maintain composure under extreme pressure. The reason this breathing pattern works is that it stimulates your vagus nerve, which is like a reset button for your nervous system. When you are emotionally activated, your sympathetic nervous system is in control, flooding your body with stress hormones and preparing you for fight or flight. The extended exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and recovery. This begins to counteract the stress response and helps restore rational thinking. You need to repeat this breathing pattern at least 3 times, but continue for as long as necessary to feel your heart rate beginning to slow down. Do not rush this step. The objective is not just to calm down enough to function, but to calm down enough to think clearly and make sound decisions. This might take 30 seconds, or it might take 5 minutes. Give yourself whatever time you require. O stands for observe. Now that you have stopped the action and begun to regulate your nervous system, you need to objectively observe what is actually happening, both internally and externally. What emotion are you experiencing? What thoughts are running through your mind? What physical sensations are you feeling? What is actually occurring in the external situation, as opposed to what you are interpreting or assuming is happening? This observation step is crucial because emotional reactions are often based on interpretations rather than facts. Someone does not return your text message, and you interpret that as rejection or disrespect when they might just be occupied. A colleague challenges your idea, and you interpret that as a personal attack when they might just be trying to make the project better. Your partner seems distant, and you interpret that as evidence they no longer care about you when they might just be stressed about work. During the observe step, you want to separate facts from interpretations. What did the person actually say or do? What evidence do you have for the story you are telling yourself about their motivations or intentions? What other explanations might exist for their behavior? This process of objective observation helps you see the situation more clearly and often reveals that your emotional reaction was based on assumptions rather than reality. You also want to observe your own internal state with curiosity rather than judgment. Do not criticize yourself for having an emotional reaction. Do not tell yourself you should not feel the way you feel. Just notice what is happening with the same objective interest you might have in watching a nature documentary. This emotion is arising. This thought pattern is active. This physical sensation is present. Information, not evaluation. P stands for proceed. Now that you have stopped the reactive behavior, regulated your nervous system, and objectively observed the situation, you can proceed with a conscious response rather than an unconscious reaction. But this does not mean jumping right back into action. The proceed step involves making a deliberate choice about how you want to respond based on your values, your goals, and your long-term interests, rather than your immediate emotional impulses. Ask yourself what response would be most aligned with the person you want to be and the outcome you want to create. If your goal is to preserve a good relationship with this person, what response would serve that objective? If your goal is to resolve a problem, what response would be most effective? If your goal is to maintain your reputation and integrity, what response would support that aim? Sometimes the best choice in the proceed step is to not respond at all, at least not immediately. You might decide that you need more information before you can respond effectively. You might realize that you are still too emotionally activated to respond in a way that aligns with your values. You might determine that the situation does not actually require a response from you at all. Other times, the proceed step might involve having a conversation, but approaching it differently than you would have if you had reacted immediately. Instead of defending yourself, you might ask questions to better understand the other person's perspective. Instead of making accusations, you might express how you interpreted their words or actions and ask for clarification. The stop method becomes more powerful the more you practice it. At first, you might only remember to use it after you have already reacted emotionally. That is normal and still valuable because it helps you develop awareness of your patterns. Gradually, you will start to catch yourself earlier in the process. Maybe after you have started to react, but before you have done serious damage. Eventually, you will be able to implement the method as soon as you notice the early warning signs of emotional activation. The goal is not to never have emotional reactions. The goal is to never let those reactions dictate your behavior in ways that work against your best interests. The stop method gives you the tools to create space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies your power to build the life you want, rather than just reacting to the life that happens to you. Thank you.